So let me now quickly introduce today's presenters before I hand off. We'll be joined today by Tracy Keogh, CHRO of Hewlett-Packard, and Dean Carter, CHRO of Patagonia. Today's conversation will be facilitated by our co-founder and CEO, Dr. David Rock. And with that, over to you, David. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay, Gabe?
Yep, can hear you and see you.
Excellent. And Dean, you with us? Can we get you on camera for a moment? Just see we've got you there. There we go. Fantastic. I love your background there. That's the original team, right? Working in the original factory. That's wonderful. Thanks very much, Dean. We'll bring you guys in a couple of minutes. I'm going to do some kind of opening comments and collect some data from people. So Dean, you and Tracy are welcome to go on or off camera as you're comfortable doing. And welcome to everyone from South Africa, from Ohio, from Seattle, from India, from Denver, from Oregon, from Texas, from San Francisco, from New York, from all sorts of places, Ireland. Wonderful to have you all here with us. We're expecting something like 700 to 1,000 talent folks on the line with us. Welcome to people just joining. As you're coming in, just put your name, not your name, your where you're calling from in the chat. It's a nice way to help you find the chat and also see where people are coming in from. So give you a moment to do that as we get started. This is not an update on the virus, so we're not going to be talking the science of viral transmission and all that. It's not legal or HR advice or medical advice. This session is intended to just help you have insights about better ways of leading through this, particularly as an HR leader or leader in your organization. And we've been doing this, as Gabe mentioned, we've been doing this every month for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and we'll continue to do it for a while, kind of as things evolve and as we want to share out different messages. And so I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes or so, just kind of sharing how we're perceiving this as a research institute and thinking about just very, very high level what's happening in the brain and what we need to manage for. Then we're going to collect some data from you. Once we've got a good group, we'll collect some data as to kind of how you're doing. We've got a few polls. And then we're going to hear from Tracy for a while, sharing what HP are up to, and then Dean for a while, sharing what they're up to. Then you have a chance to ask questions of any of us towards the end. So that's the structure as we go. So, where we are, where are we going? We've been thinking about this for a while, and this is, I think it's really helpful to understand the physiological response that you and your people are having right now. And we are actually experiencing a kind of shock. It actually has it's called acute distress disorder, if you want to look up. It has something in the DSMV. It's psychological trauma that's so strong, it impacts or creates a kind of shock, inability to think, disorientation, all of that. We're kind of moving out of that stage. Most people, not everyone, but most people are kind of moving out of that stage. And a bit like falling down the stairs and breaking your leg, we're moving more into the pain stage of actually realizing how hard this is, and actually the adrenaline's worn off. Now we've got to deal with the pain. And then at some point, whether it's, a few months or longer, hard to know, but we'll be able to rehabilitate. But I think it's important to know that this phenomena that we're all living through, it's not just a once in 100-year experience. It's the toughest experience just about everyone alive has had to negotiate psychologically. And it's kind of a 10x game, or it's a 10x challenge than we've ever had before in terms of managing ourselves and being able to focus. So I saw a piece recently that said, hey, you might be experiencing a little more stress at the moment. I laughed a lot. No one's experiencing a little more stress at the moment, or very few people. So I think it's important to kind of recognize this phenomena, that's going on as you think about the stages your organization's in, and how long the pain's going to last and all of that. There's a pendulum going on for all of us. This is something we've been talking about a lot. We've mostly shifted out of the far left, the underreacting, but there's this pendulum from sort of thinking it'll all be fine to catastrophizing, right? And we go there a lot. How do you get into the middle? The middle is really important, because you need to do something very, very difficult, whether it's just for your family, your team, or your whole organization. You need to scenario plan. Can't predict what's going to happen. You cannot predict exactly what's going to happen, but you're going to have to develop models for yourself of kind of options, and then think really deeply about them and plan for them. That's the most adaptive thing, is scenario planning. That's what all organizations that deal with disasters do. They prepare for them through scenario planning. Unfortunately, scenario planning takes a lot of brain space, and you can't do that if you don't maintain calm. And that's bolded there for a reason. That's your biggest challenge personally, and with your team and with your organization, is to maintain calm amidst this crisis. If you let that go, everything else falls apart. So it's got to be one of the biggest priorities for organizations is how do you maintain calm? And, you know, one of the ways to do that, I'm kind of working upwards in the middle, is you got to adopt the right mindset, which is really the Stockdale paradox, which is this belief that everything will work out in the end, but realizing it is going to be bad and accepting it's going to be bad until then. And so it's a really kind of tricky thing to get your head around, but you really have to have that mindset that it's going to work out in the end, but it's going to be rough, and accept that, stay calm, and get to work at planning and organizing yourself, you know, every way you possibly can. So that's the, you know, that's what we think is in the middle. We've been helping individuals think about that. We've been running some open enrollment programs to help people kind of work through it. We've been helping organizations with it, but ultimately we think, you know, being able to manage your threat level is probably the killer app in a sense. Right now. And we've been talking about this a lot if you've been watching this the last month, but this is probably the most important piece of language to you know, as your tool right now. If you haven't seen this yet, you know, 3 levels of threat. It's really, really important. Level 1 is basically alert, but not alarmed. And it's like vigilant. I mean, you should be at level 1 threat when you go out, for example. You should be vigilant to where your hands are and your mask and all of that. So level 1 threats, basically there is a danger, but it's not like right upon you. And you can still process pretty well. Level 2 threat is basically like a huge kick up from kind of a distant danger to danger is really, really close and I need to prepare. And so level 2 threat, when your brain kicks into it, your heart rate's up, can't think well, is terrible for basically any kind of cognitive work at all. You know, if you need to physically run or physically chop wood harder or something, then level 2 threat can be adaptive for physical tasks, but it's maladaptive for collaboration, creativity, definitely, perception, cognition, basically everything that's to do with, you know, working together. A level 3 threat obviously is the huge problem. That's when you think, you know, that's when it's kind of on you, the danger's like coming at you. And literally, you know, on you. So the really different systems kick in. And the thing to know is that the adaptive place that you need to do your very best to stay at is level 1. We've got to work out how to keep ourselves in our organizations at level 1, because that's where we're able to actually do the deep thinking necessary to think through this. Even on a hospital floor, like as much as they can, they've got to stay that calm. And the more dangerous it is, the more chaos it is, the more you need actually that calm and that just alertness, but not alarm. It's a really tricky phenomena to practice. But anyway, that's kind of the story. And we've been working on SCARF buffers for you. So thinking about the buffers for certainty, autonomy, relatedness, which ones really, really work well, studying that, working that out, and then the signals that you need to send to others. And again, which ones work really well. So doing a lot of thinking on kind of how do we as individuals buffer ourselves and then as organizations. So that's how we've been thinking about it. And I wanted to give you a bit more on threat because we want to ask you actually what threat level you're in at the moment. I want to go to some polls. Actually, before that, this is our mantra. Take care of yourself, look after each other, deliver what matters. This is something that we're saying constantly to each other at NLI. It's something we're saying to our clients. It's something we're teaching. We think these are the 3 things to focus on in a crisis. They're a little counterintuitive because, you know, in a crisis, you tend to just burn out, not think about taking care of yourself, but this is a marathon. In a crisis, we tend to just focus on getting things done and forget to take care of each other. People are reporting a lot more negative feedback right now, you know, at work, in the broader workplace. We have to look after each other. People are, you know, trying to do everything. We actually have to cut back, prioritize, and just deliver what really matters. So these are the 3 habits in a crisis that we've been anchoring on and continuing to innovate. But ultimately, you know, all of them are founded on being able to stay at level 1 threat and putting in your rituals, habits, processes to do that. So that's my kind of kickoff. And I'm going to sort of share at the end a little bit of what NLI is doing if we have time. But we wanted to hear from you and kind of what you've been learning, what you've been doing. So what level of threat are you in generally? What level of threat have you been in sort of most often? Level, or, you know, level 1 is a baseline, just alert but not alarmed. Level 2 is, you know, strong. You can feel yourself, you know, the adrenaline's kicking in. Level 3 is very strong threat. Your brain is exploding and you can't think at all. Great, we'll get you to click some answers there. We can see half the group has done it. We're up to almost 300 people done it. We'd love to see that from everyone. See, we're about 40% at level 2. It's strong. Level 2 is a strong threat. You can't think well at level 2 threat. It's really an issue. But we've got half at level 1, which is good. That's good news. And a few people at level 3 threat. Fantastic. Let's wrap that one up. Really interesting to see. Thanks, everyone. We've been collecting this data. It's really interesting to see kind of how people are doing through this. That's a really good question. Let's go to the next one, Gabe. We've got another poll for you. We're doing an experiment. We've never moved through so many polls so quickly, but we're going to try it. How are your employees doing? So poorly, high stress most of the time, not bad, stress, high stress some of the time, average, they're calm some of the time, good, generally being productive, or great, they're making good decisions. How are your employees doing personally through this, do you think? Really interesting to see how this one goes. We're up to about 200. We'd love to get a response from everyone if you can.
And David, just to note that the attendees cannot see the results as they're coming through.
I'll call out the results as they happen. Thanks.
Great, and I can share it at the end.
Yeah, what we might do is in a follow-up email, we'll send you a summary of the data because you've participated in it. So no one's name is collected, or we don't know who's saying what, by the way. It's anonymous. We're up to 350, a couple more people there. How are your employees doing? I'll tell you what we've got. Good news, only 4% saying poorly. Not too bad, 31%. Average, 26%. And good, 34%. That's good. Only 5% great. Making good decisions, being very productive. Only 5% of folks saying that. So, but average to good. That's good news. We're over 50. We're actually at 60% either average or good. That's good to see. I think we are settling in. If you asked this poll 2 weeks ago, you had a really different number. People are starting to settle in. Let's do the next one. Again, we'll share this data out. How are your people managers doing personally? This is a different question. So that was all employees. How are your people managers doing personally? You can click one of these. I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. We've been so curious to collect this, and we'll try and collect this over time as well as we do these each week. So how are your people doing? We've got 250. Hope we're not getting poll fatigue. Keep going with us. We're at 300. Okay, so what we got? How are your people's managers doing personally? So here we have, okay, I'll give you another second to wrap that up. We've got about 320. We're getting some poll fatigue. Poorly, 3%. 25%, not too bad, but not ahead of this yet. And then average 24%. Okay, so that's not bad. And good, keeping it together, generally being helpful, 41%. That's good. I'm surprised actually that's that high. We've been hearing different things out in the world, but average and good is adding up to 65%. That's good to see. So not as kind of in crisis as they were a few weeks back. Fantastic, thanks. Gabe, what's next? How are your leaders helping their teams psychologically? Here's an interesting one. Different question. So how well are your leaders helping their teams psychologically? This is an interesting one. We're getting more answers quickly on this one. It's got more energy. Feels like a horse race as I'm watching the data. It's fascinating. How are your leaders helping their teams psychologically? When we do this next time, Gabe, maybe we'll show people the questions ahead of time so they can kind of understand them. We've got about 300 so far. I've got a couple more come in. Let's get a few more come in. Give you another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's close that. So 2% poorly, making things worse, 13% not very helpful, 27% somewhat neutral, 39% they're being helpful to others here and there. That's the biggest number. And then 19% they're really helping people focus. So that's not a very big number though, 19% helping people focus regularly. But 39% they're being helpful here and there. So not bad. And again, neutral to being helpful again is around 60% plus the positive. So that's better. It's better than we thought it might be out there. Actually, it's good to see. I think we've got one more, Gabe.
Yep, last one, I swear.
We're at 12:15, so we're doing well. This is a good one. How well is your firm doing at working virtually now? Let's get a quick response from people on this one. Lots of people doing great. There's no poorly, that's good. It's only a few percent, not great. Lots of issues still. Keep them coming. Just keep them coming. Yeah, we'll look at this data and share it out in a follow-up email. It might not be today that we share it out, but we'll share it out with this everyone that was here with some follow-up resources. And we'll give that 5 more seconds. Oh, we'll stop that one. So No one's saying very poorly. That's good. Not great, lots of issues, 3%. So 9 people out of about 350. Average, 24%. Great, we're getting some benefits. That's good. And great, we're finding a good groove and working well is the strongest number, 39%. Fantastic. So thank you for doing that. Really interesting to see. And I'm sure if we looked at this in the last few weeks, we would have seen really different data and kind of people settling in. One of the things that happens is humans have this weird ability to acclimatize to almost anything, like a complete war zone, like let's see the one we're in now. People have this ability to acclimatize to, you know, the most crazy things that you think would be impossible to acclimatize to, but we do. And I think that's what we're starting to see now, people settling into it, building practices, working out. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and kind of, you know, working the way through it. Thanks everyone for doing that. It's a great segue to Tracy. Tracy, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you. I've really enjoyed all the work that we're collaborating with you guys on, and love what you guys have as your values and you know what the firm stands for. And let's hear from you. You know, what's been kind of you know, what's been working, what's been surprising, and
Sure.
let's take about 15 minutes. Yeah.
And I have to say, I've been going through 1 and 2 as well, so it's very consistent. So, you know, we quickly swung into action as soon as this all started, and we are 55,000 employees around the world and a big presence in APJ. So for us, it started in China, and we are the PC printer, 3D printing specialists, and you know, a really mixed impact on our business. Some part of our business incredibly busy. Suddenly everybody actually wanted a PC and a printer at home, and the other parts, obviously, as many of you experienced, you know, went completely quiet, especially in the business world, as people focused on other things. So you know, I think what we started with was creating a multidisciplinary team to address our employee needs, which was in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The basic one was, you know, safety and understanding what was going on from a health perspective. And so I think one of the first things we did for employees was to have a global call with our medical director. We have on-site clinics, and we drafted her immediately, and that had an incredibly high participation, hundreds of questions, as everybody was trying to figure out what was going on with the virus and how it could possibly affect them. And also really creating a cadence of communication from our CEO. Leadership matters so much during these times, and everything you do and say has an outsized impact, I think, and thinking about that when you're focusing on your employees. If you go to the next slide, the thing you also get a lot of advice around, because everything just suddenly became sort of chaotic, is really creating a structure. And initially we got some information and things out, but then we decided to create a structure to how we would communicate with employees, and created our calendar and started populating it based on different sort of themes for the day. We created Motivational Monday, Training Tuesdays, Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, and then Family and Fun Fridays. And so began sort of programming with that in mind, so people could get used to a new cadence of support. Now, we're not a slave to this. If we want to put a session out on a different day, we do, but I think it's really helped to connect with people. The other thing you have to do, and I see this a lot, is, you know, even with my team, they were like, oh, we have all these resources on the EAP, you know, webpage, which, you know, 3 people go and look at in a given time frame. So you have to get very proactive with sending things out. You know, I don't know about you, but suddenly the email has exploded. And so being able to kind of train people, say, oh, you know, every Monday, that email from Tracy about what we call it HP Spirit. Now we created a team that's focused on that. They know, oh, there are going to be things in there for me and my family. The other thing I think we did was become much more inclusive. And so invite family, friends. Everybody wants to share everything now. And so we make a lot of things open to people. So
Nice.
if you go on to the next slide.
Just a couple of comments. There's a lot of good things there. I like the HP Spirit and the creating certainty. You're giving people that little bit of certainty in terms of structure and a calendar. That's really nice. The relatedness of involving others is really important. I was curious, how often you said the CEO has been communicating? Has that been once a month?
So what we do is I communicate one week and do something usually, and he communicates the next week.
Great.
So every other week. In addition to that, what we've done is created these sessions. One of the learnings, and I'll talk about this later, but is actually Zoom calls are a great way to have a personal interaction with someone. Our CEO used to, what I call barnstorm. We'd go to different sites, drop in, do an all hands meeting and leave. And in many cases, the room wasn't big enough to accommodate all the employees, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. We're doing those calls. We're calling them Connect with Enrique, who is our CEO, and 100% participation, and having the leadership team there in Zoom. It feels like you're having a personal interaction, and it's a lot less wear and tear on people, and obviously we can't be together. So, you know, we're doing a bunch of different kinds of communication during this time frame, but the emails that come out from him are very personal and every couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you manage Zoom well, like you can see people clearly, you can hear them clearly, and you get the right number of boxes on your screen, you can have a very personal connection with, like, literally, you know, 25 people or 30 people. You can go up to 49 on the screen. Like, you have and it's quite intimate. And one of the fun things that we've been doing it for a long time, we started teaching, is like hand signals, you know, so visual cues. Like, hey, everyone, I've got this idea. I want you to just give me a response. You know, five fingers as you love it, 4, you could pretty love it, you know, not quite there, or even at 10, and, you know, just thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. And you can so quickly get responses. You know, how much do you love that idea? Let's see some actual responses. So you can get really fun and creative with that. But the visual cues, when you can see everyone, actually helps you.
And it's great. The other thing I would say, David, is people need to remember when they're on Zoom, you can't look grim or just be, you know, you're on all the time. Somebody's looking at you. So you need to make sure, because especially, you know, with leaders, if somebody doesn't look happy one day, everybody thinks, oh no, it's a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing I like to do on those all employee calls, because you can't get to all the questions, I actually engage in chat while other people are talking. And so then I'm answering questions that I, you know, may not raise to the level that people would, you know, include. So on the next slide, I think one of the, and this is not because you're on, but I do think one of the most impactful things we did right away was get the webinar out with you talking about, you know, how people were going through this, the level of threat, and there's the neuroscience of it. You know, I work in with a lot of engineers. They love to hear that. And I almost felt like I could hear the organizational sigh of relief once you explained how people were feeling. It sort of really reduced people's anxiety. And that was a big hit with people. They shared that with family and friends. We sent out a guide to how to work from home. You know, one of the things our leaders did was write emails to their teams saying, boy, this is really hard, and to get really personal. I think, you know, one of the things that really works is to be personal. This is the most, you know, difficult time any of us have ever gone through. It's an unprecedented historical event, and people want to hear how you're experiencing it. And, you know, this is what makes people feel connected to a company or not. So you don't want to waste this opportunity to really to get personal and be connected. And that's been hugely impactful. The other thing we did right away, you know, looking at all the needs people have. So right away I realized, oh my gosh, you know, parents are, I don't have kids, but I've learned everything about homeschooling now. And it's been amazing to see. I thought, oh, they probably had nice, you know, laid out curriculum, and it was, no, it's like, come here, throw them home and you have to teach them yourself. So I got 4 teachers together on a call, you know, different levels, to do a whole seminar on homeschooling. And, you know, it was really impactful. And within, you know, we sent it out, and in 2 days, I had hundreds of people that were on the call and asking questions.
Wow.
And then what we're doing now is a follow-up. And it was just 4 teachers that were friends of ours that we found. So we found one at the, you know, kindergarten level, the mid-school level, the high school level, and then someone who actually did homeschooling. And one of the other teachers had a specialty in special needs, which is another big area. So I think, you know, and I'm seeing some great questions here, but be creative. We're trying to find, you know, meet your employees where they are, whatever their issues are. And we're just doing stuff. If it doesn't work, we'll stop doing it. But out of that came, we're creating now Homework Club, where we're actually setting up teachers to be available for employees, so they, at different times, so they can actually help their kids with online schooling, because that was one of the biggest issues we heard right away.
Amazing. That's great. It's amazing, Tracy, how personal everyone's like suddenly having to be. Although people are going one of 2 ways. I'm still seeing organizations where everyone's still like not on camera, people trying to keep up appearances. And, you know, one of the things I find myself saying maybe once a day is, look, hey, none of us have had a haircut in a month, so it's okay. You know, none of us have had a beard trim, you know, like it's okay, you know, we're all in this together. But there's some people sort of still like trying to, you know, like they haven't got the perfect outfit and makeup on, so they're not going on camera. And some people are just like, hey, here's my pets, here's my partner, here's my family. Like,
right. And we actually asked managers to really embrace that. One of my teams did a call where everyone had their kids on their laps. You know, they just brought them in. And so, you know, everyone has a dog barking. People have cats walking on their computer, you know, whatever it is, that's actually back to the humanity and the empathy really makes a difference. If you go to the next slide, I can show you some of the other things. And I've gotten a couple questions I can see that are coming through quickly. We are integrating this with our ERGs, you know, some of the other events we already have. And I also, what I did was took people who were our recruiters, for example, and pivoted to them to be on our spirit team. I created the spirit team because I was finding my engagement team overwhelmed with all the work. They couldn't get things done quickly enough. So, you know, make sure you're pivoting people and figuring out a different way for them to help in the organization. So, you know, this is just some of the things we're doing. One of our big partners is DreamWorks. They use all our technology. So we went to them and got, you know, some help with one of their great movies, How to Train Your Dragon, and we're doing online streaming of that for our employees today, actually. And then one of the other big things that HP loves to do is volunteering. They're really missing that connection. So we figured out a way to do, you know, a virtual volunteering every Thursday. That's what Thoughtful Thursday is about. We set our doctor office hours now because people continue to have questions. Every Wednesday we have doctor's hours with our medical director, and it's global. We have another doctor from India, so, you know, it covers the world. If you go on to the next slide. So really, you know, making sure we're leveraging everything across the organization. You have to be careful too about fatigue because there's too many things coming out. That's why the calendar is available and people can click on it. And as I mentioned, I send out every Monday email that has HP Spirit on it so people know, and then they can just poke on the different things they want to attend and the Outlook goes on their calendar. So, you know, just some of the lessons learned, and I'll tell you some of the surprises. So obviously keeping the employee at the center of everything you do. You know, we created this framework so it's easy to consume, but I would say be proactive. I had to push my team with, you know, I don't want just the thing that's out there that you can access. I want us to have, you know, an Outlook where we're doing yoga all together as, you know, as an organization, or, you know, some mindfulness exercise. And, you know, I think really looking at what people need, showing empathy. You know, we've had people who are sick, and we've had people whose kids are sick. You know, you have to be able to be there to support them. One of the things, and I've talked to some folks that's is bring in the experts. You don't have to do everything. We don't have time. We're busy managing everything. You know, I brought in I brought in the doctors. You can just host it. I brought in the teachers, you know, and I interviewed them. So it's really, you know, the easiest way to do it. I think moving quickly, one of the surprises to me, because I feel like I have a very agile team, was they're like, well, we'll get this out in 2 weeks when we can build this. I'm like, no, it has to be out now. People need it now. We can't wait. I don't care if it's perfect, just get it out. And so, you know, really moving quickly. And then, you know, I would say, really use this as a learning moment. You know, capture the lessons learned before you forget. We're all pivoting now into the next phase. We're already working on, and I know we're talking to you about what's reentry look like when people are coming back. It's not going to be a big bang. How are you feathering in people? So we're already preparing, but don't forget the great lessons you learned in the beginning. So we've now built in kind of lessons learned sessions to make sure we're getting those. And then, you know, find the positives. I've learned a lot of things. One of the best things we've been slowly but surely moving towards more mobility. All the things we didn't think we could do at home, we figured out how to do it in a week. And so, you know, almost like in India, for example, 99% of our people are home and they're still doing everything they need to do. We're closing the books, we're doing everything. So making sure you're learning those lessons now. And, you know, I think we'll do communication differently moving forward. We'll support employees in a different way. We're actually running a quick redo of all our people strategies because we're going to repurpose them. And some things will be structurally different. We won't have the same things happen in the future. We may not reopen some offices because we've gone mobile, and why, you know, pull it back. So we're looking at everything and really trying to learn those lessons.
Yeah, that's great, Tracy. A couple of comments before we go to Dean. We'll just take a couple of, we'll respond to a couple of quick questions, and I have some comments for you. And Dean, you'll be up in about 3 or 4 minutes. We're doing well on time. Thanks for sharing all that. Just some great things. Can you say more about the virtual volunteering? Like, how have you had people volunteering? What are some of the inspiring stories there?
Yeah, so there are ways that we're supporting organizations. That's one thing. We also tripled our match so that people, when they're making donations, we're picking places where we're donating. And then there are other things like you can write letters to people in nursing homes, you do it all together. Or, you know, so we're figuring out ways to support different groups, you know, medical workers on the front line, whatever it is. I'm happy to share that as a follow-on because I have a great team that looks at all the different things. We are also, we do 40 days of doing good. And so we're launching that in a virtual way this year, and how teams can pick different activities that they want to participate in.
A question, I think you guys have some people who still have to be out in the field, like they have to be in the office or out.
Yes.
What have you been doing to help those folks? Because obviously there's a fairness issue that can really come up. Have you found creative ways to help?
I think, you know, that is very hard. We've had to work to actually, you know, procure PPE for them, you know, be very, you know, industrious in terms of finding things. Like we have medical clinics on our sites. We went and raided those and got gloves. So I was trying to think of any way I could get, you know, protective gear. So first of all, we're really protecting those people and making sure that they're safe. We're also working to figure out how customers can be supported virtually more than they were before. But we have a lot of protocols in place from a health and safety perspective. And the other thing we're learning is the lessons from around the world. So China's getting back up and running. So we're able to look at what happened to them and now, you know, where Italy was versus US. So really looking at people in all the different places that they are and trying to take those lessons and then share them globally. And I think that's been really helpful.
I really love the session we did. I don't want to be too self-promotional, but actually I found it so moving being able to speak to 4,000 people. Was it like 4,000 people?
Yeah, it was. And you know, I'm telling you, it was like an organizational sigh of relief. People felt like, oh my God, now I understand. You know, the other thing on surprises for me, one is I didn't realize how productive I was in the office. I felt like when I got home, my productivity plummeted because of all these calls, 12, 14 hours a day. And I'm a very positive and stable person, and I find it affects me. I have to be really careful about maintaining my, you know, overall like mental health, going out, doing things, connecting, turning off the computer. That's really hard. And
this is a 10x game for our self-regulation. This is much harder. And I want to close with a comment, and I'll go to Dean. Just a sort of a question someone asked that I think I want to close with. That someone said, you know, our company's always worked virtually, and you know, the leadership team hasn't been doing anything different or really checking in. You know, is that a problem? And for me, that's an enormous problem because this is the crisis of people's lives. Like you know, people came out of the Great Depression; it changed them forever. This is bigger psychologically than that, way bigger. And this is, you know, what your company does in this crisis will burn in brains forever. This is the crisis of people's lives so far for most people, not everyone, but for most.
And I would just say one of the first things I did for our CEO was I sent him a list of all, you know, the direct reports, top talent, our MDs, and said, call each of them personally and see how they're doing. Not business wise, you just need to check in. The other thing I did was for example, on my team, I sent games to every, and puzzles and things to everyone who had children. I sent to their children, and I told my CEO to do that as well. I can't tell you the impact that had. The other thing, for people who were high performing, usually I might send flowers or a thank you. I sent them fruit and vegetables. They were like, oh my God, this is fantastic. So, pivoting, today my team and I were having a charades luncheon. We're playing charades virtually, and the prize is a Corona kit, which has toilet paper, antibacterial wipes, masks in it, and that's what they'll win. So, how do you work this into creating that personal environment with people? Because this is very personal for everyone.
It's extremely personal and very, very difficult, and people will their brains will explode if they feel like their leaders don't care. It's going to be absolutely huge. Some great comments coming in. Thanks so much, Tracy. Really, you're an inspiration, your energy and positivity. I know it takes a lot. Me too. It takes a lot, but really appreciate it. Stay on if you can. Feel free to answer any questions in the chat. Great. If you have to jump off, that's fine too. You got a company to run. Thanks for being here with us. And you got 50,000 people to love, and we appreciate you sharing some of that with us, so we can take some of those ideas away. But thanks so much. And let's hear from Dean. So Dean, great to have you. Patagonia, what an incredible company, and how lucky you are. And I'm sad for you that you can't surf. You and I have actually been for a surf, literally.
we literally have been there. The surf is closed right now. The beaches are closed and all the big surf breaks. So
how are you doing? Tell me how you're doing through that.
I'll talk a bit. It is it's been an interesting time. And by the way, Tracy, thank you so much. That was really, really incredible. I love and I'm inspired by the work you're doing.
I know you're doing great stuff too, so I'd love to see you on here if nowhere else.
I was kind of thinking, I'm a little rusty on my, SHRM course I took on global pandemic. It's been a while, and I really just took it for credits. But I'm like, in an emergency, what do? You call Tracy, which, I did, and we've been in contact with this. So David, how we're doing? I know you said, come on, let's talk about this a few weeks ago, and let's talk about what we're doing and how we're doing. And it reminds me a little bit of the level 1, 2, and 3 stress. And before Patagonia, I was at Sears, and Arthur Martinez was the CEO years ago during a turnaround moment. And there's a bit of folklore in this moment where he's talking to the press or analysts, and they said, Arthur, what are you doing? What is your strategy? And he pauses and he looks up and he says, it's really hard to talk about strategy when your hair is on fire. And that's all he says. And I think we're working through that moment and trying to figure out all the things you're saying, how to be calm in the moment and keep our employees safe. I would say, just for perspective on what's happening at Patagonia, and those of you who follow the company, you can imagine 4 months ago, it was, for us, another record year sales, and the sun was shining and the surf was up, and it was another day in the grass eating our organic bowl of food with children on laps and crawling around. And then when this hit, 4 weeks ago, we closed everything in the interest of safety for our employees. We closed the warehouse, we closed online, we closed all of our stores, and we closed our corporate offices. And our revenue basically has gone to zero. And so we're in a challenging situation, for sure, and as our employees are. And we get a lot of questions when you say, how are you doing? I get questions all the time about, what's going on. And what I want to say is, you and your beautiful family that I know, your children's that I know the name of, they're going to be healthy and safe. And really soon, we're going to all be back together working and playing, and our lives together will be just like it was before. And I don't have answers, like when the things that I want to say, and I say more frequently than I want to say, like a lot of you, I'm sure, who are in similar situations. I don't know a lot more than I like. So what I do know, and David, is, we do look at Patagonia as a community, and so we, on all the things, we're doing some very, very similar things that are happening with HP and Tracy in terms of supporting our employees. But I really want to lean on 2 places. A lot of what we do is just the interaction of our employees. be eating together and surfing together and climbing together. And that is critical to how we work the company. And that foundation has changed and will be that way for a long time. So how do we shift this foundation? And a lot of you may be working through this too. How do you shift quickly to keep your values and live by your values and keep the culture in a really new and extraordinary environment? So I'm going to have Lauren Sirota talk for a moment of how we're shifting our community, how we moved very, very fast from platforms that in the past really wouldn't be considered at Patagonia to ways how we're leveraging everyone to stay together and connect quickly. And then also I've got Cheryl Shushan here, and she leads our Family Services Division. And I think when I talk about two things that are things that are working and things that are surprising, David, I think the thing that is working is how we figured out new ways to connect, because we're used to surfing and climbing and holding each other babies, and those are the things. That's how we connect. And so Lauren has some ways of thinking about that. And the other part is what has been surprising in terms of ways we have to help is really around our working parents. What they're saying, and as you guys are hearing the same thing, the world has completely changed. Not only you have to get work done, but now you're a teacher, and perhaps both parents are trying to work at home and both are teaching and helping them play and working with distractions. And so Cheryl and the team have really doubled down, and I wanted to share some of the very specific things that the team has been doing that may be helpful for what I'm sure are the real challenges that some of the parents are facing. So, we'll start with Lauren and how we shifted very, very rapidly, and how we're supporting how we connect. And then Cheryl will talk with you in just a moment.
Thanks, Dean. It's really well said. Hi, everyone on the call. Happy Friday. So to just really build on Dean's point, when we shifted towards remote work and started to see how the virus was impacting people across the globe, we knew first and foremost that we wanted to figure out a way to help our employees navigate the uncertainty and do it in a community-based way to strengthen connection in what is and continues to be a really isolating experience. And we also assumed it was our responsibility to help our employees to adapt to the changing circumstances and manage this new normal. So what we did was we launched a customized Patagonia Wellness Corner. It's incredible. We got this up and running in 4 days, and it offers videos, podcasts, meditation classes, exercise classes taught by our in-house instructors, articles, recipes, and even links where to find fresh food to local organic farms that Patagonia has partnerships with in the local area. The sole intent of this Wellness Corner is very much aligned to Patagonia's ethos, which is really to always send the message to our employees that taking care of your physical and emotional health is first and foremost the most important about being a human being and also being an employee, because we really believe at Patagonia that taking care of yourself means that you'll show up better for your family, for your peers, and also for your teams. We truly believe that during a time of crisis that building healthy habits becomes even more important. So you can see here on the screen, this is a snapshot. On the left-hand side, you have our, we have a newsletter that comes out twice a week of our Patagonia Wellness Corner. And on the left-hand side, or your left, there's a snapshot of the types of resources that we've curated. And we've broken that out into 4 buckets, which is around listen, watch, learn, and eat. And it's mainly centered around how to help employees with things like how to navigate uncertain times, how to cope with anxiety and stress, how to work remotely, supporting parents at home while working, and keeping physically active. We also have recipes for cooking healthy food, and most importantly, once in a while, we try to share a laugh together. On the back end, this is a crowdsourced site, so we actually leveraged Microsoft Teams to curate channels according to each of the genres, and have people comment on what they're reading, what they're listening to, the exercise classes that they're attending, and have people send us what they like and the things that are most resonating with them. There are a number of live opportunities for our community to come together every single week. We have exercise classes where people literally, it's like up to 300 to 400 people at a time, to morning meditations. And we also have live webinars to our local farm tours that focus on regenerative agriculture, and also great stories from our core sport ambassadors. One of my personal favorite things about our Wellness Corner is that we also have, similar to HP, we have virtual volunteering through Patagonia Action Works, where employees can sign up for community-based activities in their local area that's related to our mission to save the home planet. For example, this week we launched a virtual activism week, such as helping things ranging from you can help the Los Padres forest, to learning about what you can do to help other people to vote, to supporting the EPA to roll back clean car and create a fuel-free economy. Some other examples that we have on our wellness site is that all of our recipes, they're curated by our own Patagonia chefs, and we use Microsoft Teams channel to have people request the kinds of food that they're interested in learning to cook, and then we have cooking demos.
And hey, Lauren, what's been the most, just rather than sort of giving us all of it, because it's we got to move on a bit, what's been the most kind of surprising and thing that people have like really delighted, that really been like people have been really delighted by? What's been the sort of the one resource you provided that like everyone was like, wow, that's amazing?
Yeah, I would say, David, two things. I think our exercise classes have been really popular just because it gives people a break in the middle of the day to take a yoga or a HIIT class or a Pilates class to be able to move their body. And then I think what also people really love is the films that we curate, which are related to our mission as well.
Nice. Yeah, we started doing, I think Lisa Rock started doing a yoga class with everyone in real time with our employees and stuff. It was really nice. And I think things that we do together, we started doing a kind of, actually we haven't done this yet, but we're working on a talent show, a virtual talent show, which is we're threatening to do. Gabe, we have to get back to that. But we have done a kind of quiz night. We did a quiz night with everyone that was sort of, someone just said, hey, I want to do a quiz night, let's do it. And many of our people jumped onto that. So I know you guys are like really struggling, like, HP have got, some business and stuff, and you guys are in a whole different place. And Dean, I tremendously appreciate you coming along with, holding what you've got to hold emotionally and mentally right now. But do you want to share some of the other things you guys are doing?
Yeah, I want to go to Cheryl for just a moment. And Cheryl, quickly, just share the ways you're supporting parents. But of all the things that have been challenges for people working from home, I think this is the most challenging. And so, and I think the team has really approached this in a really extraordinary way that maybe help for some others. Cheryl?
Thank you, Dean. In all transparency, you guys, after our exercise class on Wednesday, I can barely walk. So at least I'm trapped in my house and don't have very far to go. So you all may know that Patagonia has offered on-site childcare since 1983, serving children 0 to kindergarten. We currently have about 200 children participate in 3 locations in the United States. And so obviously when this happened 4 weeks ago and Patagonia closed the doors, we quickly had to pivot to what is it going to look like to try to support children and families in a virtual environment, which goes against almost everything we believe in with kids, which is being outside and playing in nature and really having these strong connections. So we started originally talking about how to create workspaces, how to create schedules for your kids, how to work in shifts as parents, but really this is so challenging for families. We're expecting them to be full-time parents and full-time employees in a time where our company, who everybody feels very passionate about our mission, we're expecting them to show up, and it's very hard. So we've put some things in place and we've changed and we continue to learn what's working and what's not working.
Cheryl, what do you think is the most effective thing that parents have really leaned into?
I think they're loving the live events with their kids. So every classroom is hosting a little live event, even if it's go find your favorite hat. We're sending weekly emails with some activity calendars so they know what to do. And also some tips like remember how to set boundaries. Here are some ideas for how to foster independent play. Here are some things to deal with really big feelings in kids. But the other thing that we started doing this week that I think is probably going to be one of the most vital things we do is simply holding a space for parents to jump on a call. We hold it. If nobody shows, it's fine. Each classroom is holding a space every other week where parents can join. They can just share war stories. What is like not going well at all. They can connect with one another. We can offer some suggestions if we have them, or simply just listen to what is going on. So we'll get through this, and we're going to continue to be creative and not bound by convention like we always are, but it is extremely challenging. So
yeah,
do what we can.
That's amazing. Thanks for the work you're doing. And, you know, the theme I'm hearing is companies are having to adapt super fast to things they never imagined a month ago they would be doing. Like, okay, we're in the helping parents teach their kids business now. Okay, we're
virtually.
Okay, we're in the helping people like work out how to get food business now, right? We're in the like where to get people masks from now business. Like, and it really takes something to adapt, you know, and going back to that level 1 threat, like if you're in level 2 or 3, you can't like work out how to solve those kinds of problems. We have to stay calm, and as leaders and, you know, as people running these things, we've got to find a way to, you know, to keep ourselves calm so we can just invent things we've never had to invent before. It's really quite something. Thanks, Cheryl. I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. Dean, do you want to add some comments?
Yeah, the only thing is like at the end of this, the two things that I keep thinking about, in addition to all of the other things in terms of just the challenges that we're dealing with the business and what that means for the HR team in terms of responding to the benefits and other things. The broad two things that I feel like we have to do is mind our community. And those are the things that, you know, Cheryl and a whole team of people in Lauren are working on, is how do we continue to create the connection in the community. And the other part, David, you spoke to earlier, is to mind your values. At the end of the day, go back to your values. And as you're making all these decisions, big and small, mind them, because these are the things that stories are made of for the future. Remember when, remember the pandemic, remember, you know, for us, the fires and the floods, and what we did during that time, because these will be the stories that people will tell for years to come. And so you want the stories to be the stories that enforce and reinforce the values in the culture. So continue to go back to it and reinforce it. So it was a really good point, David. And I think those are the two things that are our North Star as we navigate through this for our people.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Stay on, Tracy. If you, James, if you both stay on, I'm going to ask you both a couple of kind of quick questions. We'll do some quick answers. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes to sort of what you're doing. But thanks to both of you for being with us. Everyone stay with us. We've got some important questions and then some closing comments. I think you'll appreciate the sort of close today as well. Quick question, like, I mean, it's sort of, it's almost like, can we even think about it, but performance management, are you letting people change their goals? Are you know, what are you doing with that, Tracy? Just a quick response on that.
So first of all, we don't do any ratings. We haven't for 4 years. We got rid of that a while ago. I'm not a fan of it. And I think managers should just throw out any expectations. People are just doing the best they can. I would not be doing performance management, except maybe in a developmental way of, you know, we're emphasizing for people if they have time. You know, some people can't do their jobs that well. We're making sure they have training available and development opportunities. But I think one of the things we're looking at, and this is always a challenge for managers when people are working at home, is how do you measure productivity so managers can feel comfortable? Not in this environment because we're all in a crisis, but when we move to a much higher level of mobility, which we will after this, so that people feel comfortable with people working in different ways. And so that we're using as a learning experience, but I would not be holding people accountable. That's like, how annoying would that be?
Oh, thanks, Tracy. What about Dean? Any comments on that?
We're in the same exact place. I mean, we haven't done ratings in years. And at the moment, we're letting people, I mean, what performance was and how we would define what that means 4 weeks ago is very different from what that means at the moment. Yeah, and everyone is in new jobs and new roles and doing new things. We have people who, you know, were making jackets and are now making masks. I mean, things are changing dramatically, and the great thing is the kind of the agility of learning that people are doing is fantastic. But we are not focused on.
You guys are in the food business too. Can you just get some food together for a lot of people?
Yeah. That business is booming. That's one part of our business.
Something there. You got something there. You know, there's a lot going on, and I think, you know, I've been talking to firms about this as well. Like, forget the quarterly goals. Like, if you can set a monthly goal for people, like, amazing. But actually, what you should do is weekly goals. Like, this is what we're going to get done this week, and then daily stand-up meetings with your close team on camera. Where did you make progress on? You know, what do you need help with? Just daily, and that's you know, we've done that as well. We've got to change that. There's a bunch of questions coming in to me to answer right now, but I think what I'm hearing as a theme here is you've got to adapt and like really sense where people are, and then find ways to use your resources that you have in really, really creative ways, like what Tracy's doing with her, you know, recruiters who are not very busy right now, like using them for sprint. And you know, what you'll find is some people actually have more capacity because if they don't have kids, for example, and they're working at home, not traveling, you're going to have people with 130% capacity. How can they help the people who have like 50% capacity? So we need to get flexible with that stuff. I think as a society, as we kind of accept how long this is really going to last, which we're not quite there yet, but as we sort of accept that, we're going to have to really be honest about supporting the people who have kids versus don't in a whole different way. You're going to go a whole new level with that. And also people who have to be out in public, they're going a whole new way. We're going to have to like really address those things coming up.
And I would just also say, help the business figure that out. For example, so we have folks that work in retail stores like Best Buy that sell HP products. They're merchandisers. Obviously, we're closed down now. And you know, we've committed to pay all our contractors through at least the end of May. So what my sales guys did is figure out those merchandisers with nothing to do. They actually put them on the phones with the people that work on HP.com, and they're actually talking through the same thing they would have done in a store if someone came in to buy a product. They're doing it from their bedrooms, right? So like being able to be creative with people who've done different roles, you can have them do other things in your organization because it's all hands on deck right now.
Now's the time for growth mindset. Now's the time to just completely experiment. We've been experimenting like in a week more than we've done in a quarter. Massive experimentation. I want to get some closing comments. I see people jumping off. We'd love to just do a couple of closing comments. Got a little reward for you at the end. And stay with us, Tracy. Indeed, if you're willing to spend a couple more minutes, you know, just answer some questions at the end. We'll close off kind of 5 after. But this is some of the things we've been doing at NLI. Just won't go into all of it, but you know, around status, just like continually coming back to how we're helping, regular communication weekly, a huge increase in autonomy, brought the company together around focus, which has been really important. Leadership team meeting every few days on camera, how you're doing, and really just providing enormous support. Someone asked about the game nights, the talent shows, like it's a real thing. A lot of our people are kind of have these weird skills, like they're opera singers, and we have several opera singers, and crazy karaoke is crazy when we have karaoke nights. So we have band people and people who performers and all sorts kind of in the background, but so that's going to be really fun. But I think the big thing is just accepting that this is really, really hard for people. This is probably the most challenging thing people will experience in their life, their whole life, as they go forward. Gabe, can we just put up a quick poll before we wrap up? I know some people will jump. Can we just throw that poll up of sort of how we can help you going forward? We've been doing a lot of briefings one-on-one. We've been doing a lot of, we have opened a program called Focus, 3 modules. It's an open enrollment. And just like, if you're interested in exploring it, we'll give you a couple of free places for your organization. It's an evening and daytime. But if you're interested in kind of digging into our work a bit, we're giving away free places to people from organizations to experiment and just try it out. It's 3 one-hour sessions once a week for 3 weeks to really help you focus. So that's what Focus is. It's a Focus Hive is 3 one-hour sessions. So just if you're willing to just kind of throw something in the final poll there, and then I'll leave you with some closing thoughts. Thanks very much everyone for doing that. So Focus, we're running in-house as well as externally, and it's literally take care of yourself, look after your people, deliver what matters. That's what it's all about. The science of taking care of yourself, look after your people, deliver what matters. A lot about being adaptive in that last piece as well. So let us know if you're interested in that. Just email back to us if you want to check in on that. And then I want to leave you with this thought. This is a little reward at the end. Remember that the entire planet is sharing this experience with you. And this is an amazing time to be alive. This is something that people are going to be studying and talking about for decades. And we're all alone. This is really tough. This is a 10 times harder experience than anyone have lived through, unless we've had a war around us. So it's tough for everyone, me included. Share your humanity, get adaptive. And I'll close with this: take care of yourself, look after each other, and deliver what matters. So thanks very much, Tracy and Dean. Really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, David and Tracy. Thank you so much.
It's great to see you guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. We'll send out a digest for this too. Thanks all.
Thanks, Tracy, Dean, Lauren, Cheryl, and of course, David, for today's session. In an era of constant concern, you left us feeling, I think, a little more hopeful and armed with some real life strategies and ideas that I'm sure a lot of us can put into action right now. For those of you that are remaining, we wanted to run one last poll. I figure why not? We seem to love polls here. So we just want to know what your feedback is, and take your time. But, you know, was it what you expected? Was it useful? Did you get any good ideas and insights from it? Or maybe it wasn't helpful at all. So I'm just going to leave that up while I close out. But also wanted to thank all of you for attending. You know, you guys just brought so many great coping strategies to light in the chat. So it was really wonderful for all of us to be able to see that. A couple other quick notes before we let you go. And of course, if you need to drop, please do so at your leisure. But for those of you remaining, if you'd like to watch this webinar again or share with your colleagues, a recording will be made available by end of business today. Today's follow-up email will come from Mary Grace Rapola. And you can respond to her directly if you'd like to explore deeper conversations with one of our client advisors. As we've mentioned, these weekly Friday webinars at noon Eastern Time will continue as we address additional NLI perspectives and your questions regarding leadership challenges during this crisis. Next week, we'll have a few special guests, which include Rebecca Port of Netflix and Amy Schultz of DTE Energy, two companies that happen to share unique versions of utility services right now. Next Thursday, we'll be running a product demo webinar of our newest learning solution, Focus, which David was mentioning, which is around the neuroscience of thriving through disruption. So stay tuned for that.
Great to see Netflix next week. She's fantastic. And the week after, we have Deb Bubb from IBM, who's also super thoughtful and talk about how they're thinking about 400,000 people. So join us again every Friday if you can. We're going to have different folks. But Tracy, a huge thank you to you and Dean. Thank you both, seriously, for being here.
Thanks, David. Bye-bye.
Thank you, David.
Let you guys drop. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks, everyone. This concludes our session for today. We'll see you next time.